Hey, church family. I wanted to give you another update for the prayer and fasting time that we're doing, 21 days of it. To be exact, we're about at day 10, I believe, and I hope you're doing well. I'm doing much better. My body physically is doing really well. I want to start out actually just by thanking you for being a part of this. Thank you for investing in yourself, in your own spiritual growth, and investing in your church by praying for it and by fasting for it. And I know that it's something that will pay dividends, and I look forward to seeing the fruit of that. Now, what I wanted to talk about today was this: is that something that you'll when you think about spiritual growth, one of the things that you'll find is that there's a lot of good analogies between physical growth and spiritual growth, the spiritual world and the physical world. And that's why when we did our focus season on soul training, there were so many good analogies that we could use for training your body versus training your mind. Even the Apostle Paul talks about that in the book of 1 Timothy. Well, I was reminded of this the other day when I was praying. I don't want you to tell my wife this, but over the last 9 or 10 days, I've actually lost weight. I've lost probably 9 or 10 pounds, about a pound a day, doing the Daniel fast. And don't worry, I haven't skipped a single meal. I've been eating the whole time. It's just that I've been eating healthier and I've been cutting out things like sweets. I used to eat ice cream and I would only eat it a little bit at a time, so it didn't seem like much. It didn't seem like I was really gorging myself, but over the course of the day I think it could add up, and I would have a few cookies here and there, and I think again over the course of the day it would add up, and I actually didn't really even realize how unhealthy I was eating. I would have never told you I was a healthy eater, but I just didn't realize the extent of how unhealthy I was eating at the time. And not only that, but I didn't realize really how bad I had felt either, because I used food to comfort myself. And so it creates this vicious cycle, where you feel bad and so you eat. And then the eating makes you feel bad, but you comfort yourself, and all of those things add up. All of those little treats actually they make you feel better in the short term, but they make you feel worse in the long term. Well, over the last couple of months, I've begun to realize that it's been the same kind of with my own spiritual life and really with my leadership as well. I had become spiritually and emotionally unhealthy, and I didn't really even realize how spiritually and emotionally unhealthy I was becoming, because I would use other things like watching sports, for instance, to comfort myself or to get my mind off it. Now, most of the time, whether it's physical or spiritual, we just don't realize it when we're becoming unhealthy. But there are actually a few things that shock us into that realization. They help us to know how unhealthy we're becoming. One of them can be a health scare. For instance, there's nothing that will make someone start eating healthier than to have a heart attack. And at least for a while, they'll start to follow all of the doctor's recommendations and even do it with joy. Now, the key is continuing that on after the initial thing, but it'll make you change very, very quickly. Spiritually speaking, it might be the realization that your life has become unmanageable, and it's just starting to become harder and harder to put on the front that you've been healthy, or it's becoming harder and harder to comfort yourselves or to cover over the guilt or the pain or the general emptiness that you feel. Those things will sometimes shock you into change as well. Another thing is when someone is loving enough to point it out. They see something that's happening in your life, and they're courageous enough to speak the truth to you, and then you start to realize, and if it's someone that you trust, then you can do that. Unfortunately, as good Minnesotans, we oftentimes don't want to get into each other's business that way, and so we don't say anything, and we don't want to pry into their personal stuff. But that's another thing that can sort of shock us back into health. A third way is just like we're doing right now, is when we take the time time to slow down, or maybe even stop for a while to spend some time in solitude and take some inventory of where our life is. It's to be honest with ourselves, to be honest about how we're feeling in life, to be honest about where we are spiritually, how things are really going. And this is what fasting and prayer can oftentimes do for us. It's to take the time to slow down, to take it seriously, to take the time to listen to what God is saying, to take the time to listen to our own inner feelings in prayer. Fasting and prayer is not just about praying for other people, but it's also about noticing what's going on the inside. And so I hope that you take the time to notice what's going on the inside. And not only that, but have the willingness to admit that you are not, if you're not as healthy as you thought you were, and take the opportunity to do something about that. Well, the focus season that we've been praying for is actually one where we are going to do exactly that. We're going to take the time to slow down and to look at different aspects of the spiritual life that oftentimes get left behind, and learn how we can use those, how we can change how we're living, how we're doing things in order to allow God to work in us, so that we can thrive spiritually. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you're strong there. Of course, we have another communal prayer on Thursday night, and again on Saturday morning. We'd love to have you join us for that. Also on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. We'd love to have you come and join us, and not just pray sort of with each other, but pray together in the same room with each other. So thanks again for doing it. Post your comments on the page. If you haven't signed up for the updates, then contact the office and see how you can get on there, and we'd love to hear how things are going for you. Thanks a lot.